Welcome back to Blue Collar Coder. I'm Jack Harrington, and today we're going to jump back into the world of module federation as we're doing all month in the month of June. And this time we're going to do what you've requested, which is to go and build an end-to-end example of two different applications working together. And for that, I've chosen to use a content management system because it's pretty much a standard piece of any architecture. So let's imagine you've got a company selling some products and they want to go and list all their products. And so they've got stuff on them about title, price, and description, and images, and all that. And so we've got one application where administrators can go and enter data into that. And that gets stored off into an API. And then there's the front end application, the one that works with the customers, that goes and hits that same API and gets that data and then renders it. Now, on the admin side of the house, as I'm typing away and building out my pay and building out my CMS data, right? I'm getting a preview, right? There's something that's showing me what it's going to look like on the homepage. And because normally these apps are written by two different teams, they end up looking a little different because the preview that's in the administrative app isn't the same code that is running on the homepage. And that's a problem. There's a lot of little hacky solutions for this, oftentimes involving iframes and temporary storage of data. It's not great. Module federation and this video actually shows you how to do this super cleanly. So first, we're going to go and build out a CMS admin application. It's great. It's actually, on its own, it's even really kind of fun. And then we are going to build out the homepage application, and it's going to consume the rendering components from the admin app. It's really cool. You don't have to do it that way. You could have the CMS app consume the homepage rendering app. It doesn't really matter, right? That's up to you. But this shows you how to do that from end to end. I think you're going to love it. So what we're going to use for this example, we're going to have like a dog thing. So we're going to allow you to enter information about dogs, puts up some cute pictures. It looks really pretty. And then we'll have a homepage app that then renders that and actually gives you the ability to edit it as well. You know what? Let's just go jump into the code. So here are our two apps sitting side by side. On the left-hand side, we've got the CMS editor. And on the right-hand side, we've got the display, the homepage. And the CMS editor is on 8080, and the homepage is on 8081. So on the CMS editor side, as well as on the homepage side, if you just go to / you're just going to get a thing that says home. So you have to give it an article. So in this case, we're going to give it Bessie. And that's going to go off to the database and going to go give us our title and our text and these great images. Same thing happens on the homepage side. We're going to use components from the CMS side to basically just go and get that data for us and display it. All we have to do is give it the ID and it does all the rest. And kind of gratuitously, you can also edit in the homepage. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you know what? This is just for kicks, so let's do that. So how are we going to build this? We're going to use NetB for the database. That's basically a kind of file-based Mongo, very lightweight. So we're going to use React Query to make the request to the API that we're going to have embedded in the Webpack development server. We're going to use Semantic UI React for the UI toolkit. And we're going to use this starter project to start us out. So this is basically a Webpack 5 starter. I'm just going to clone that. So first we're going to make a directory for our CMS proof of concept and within that packages, because we're really going to make a monorepo here. And then we're going to use dget to dget that starter React kit. Dget is just an easy way to clone a repository, but actually remove the .git file. So you're kind of like grabbing a copy of what's there now. All right, let's open up VS Code. Now we're going to go into the CMS admin, and we're going to change out the package name, start it up, see what it looks like. There you go. Hi there, I'm React from React. package.json, we've got our start command, which fires up the Webpack dev server, which is defined over in the Webpack config.js. So up at the top of this, we have our public path. And this is a really important thing for module federation, actually. It's kind of the base URL for your module federation. And it also has to match that dev server port down there. It's got some rules. We're going to go and have the ability to bring in CSS, as well as Babelized JavaScript. And finally, we've got our module federation plugin, which we'll just change to CMS for the name. And it also shares out React currently. Over in the Babel RC, we've got our presets. And now let's go into the source. So starting at the index.html page, just a div, really. And then the index.js just brings in app. And that app then brings in React DOM, has a little app, and there you go. And the CSS is just really simple stuff. So the first thing we want to do is build out our backend API. So we're going to add nedb, and we're also going to bring in the body parser. That's going to allow us to post JSON and convert that post body back into JSON, as well as cores. That's going to allow us to make requests from other pages, which we're going to need when we embed it in the homepage. And now we're going to go and add a before function to the dev server. This basically just gives us an opportunity to hack on the Express app that the Webpack dev server creates. So we're going to bring in the body parser and use that. We're going to bring in cores and just use that. And next we're going to build an API that when given a page is going to go hit that nedb database that we haven't built yet and find the document and return it. Just as easy as that. So the route is /API, and then whatever the value is after that goes into page. So we're going to get that. Then next we're going to go and bring in the nedb library, and that gives us a data store. We can then initialize that data store with a file name, and then load it up. So it's actually persistent, which is pretty amazing. And now back within the get, we need to go first to find the record. So we just give it a db find. And then you give it the ID. Every record has to have an ID. Everything else is up to you, but it has to have an ID. And that'll give you back an error or the documents, whatever matches. So at this point, we're saying, if you don't get an error, then either return the document or return an empty object. And that's basically saying, hey, any document is valid. Any ID is valid. We're just going to return you some data. But if there is data, then we're going to return that. Otherwise, we're just going to return an empty object. And the only reason we'd error out is if there was some sort of internal error within the nedb system. All right, so let's now clone this and create a post method for this. So get means you get the value, and post means you update it. So first thing we need to do is see if there is a value there already, because we need to decide whether we want to update or insert a record. So in the case where there's no error and there's a document, then we are in the update case. So we're going to call update. We're going to give it the ID. And then we're going to tell it to set the whole thing to whatever we get as the body of the request. And then we get a callback when that's done. And we just fire off that we've updated the record. But if that's not the case, right, then we need to go and insert a new record. And so we give it the ID, which is the page. And then the rest of the body just gets dropped in there. And at which point we say, hey, we inserted a record. And the last thing we need to do is we need to set the history fallback API true. And that just means that Webpack dev server is going to respond to any URL and let that pass through. That's going to allow us to do like /Bessie and all that. Okay, let's fire it up and see what it works. Great. Now if we go and ask for API Bessie, we get an empty object, which is what we expect. So that's looking good. So the next thing to do is get our UI set up. So we're going to bring in Semantic UI React and Semantic UI CSS. This is our toolkit. We're going to go over into the app, and we're going to go add in the CSS for the Semantic UI. And we're just going to bring in a few little components, a header, a container, and a menu. This is going to give us our top bar header. So it's a container with a menu in it, and that has another container within it. And within that is the header. It's got the CMS editor H1 in it. Close that off. All right, now things are blowing up. This is not good. So let's go check that out. Oh, over in the console, we see that we are missing support for things like PNGs. That's not good. So let's go back over in our Webpack config. So let's go back over in our Webpack config and add a new rule for all of those static assets. So we're going to test to see if it's a PNG or an SVG or so on and so forth. And if it is, then we're just going to fire off file loader at it. So let's go and add in file loader. Okay, looks good. Let's fire that up. And it looks good. All right. Got ourselves a UI toolkit. Next thing to do is to go and add in the router. So we need to be able to handle like the difference between slash and slash Bessie on the UI. So we're going to do React Router DOM for that. Let's bring that in. And then we're going to bring in the browser router as router. React Router DOM works in a whole bunch of different contexts, including SSR. So we're going to use the one that works on the browser and call that browser router. And we're just going to wrap the whole thing, the whole app in that router. And next we're going to create the kind of content area. So I'm going to create a container for that. And then within that, we're going to bring in the React Router's switch. And that's going to expect we have a bunch of routes in there. So we're going to bring in a route for the homepage. And that's just, we're just going to tell it pass slash will give us a div that says home. Let's fire this up. There you go. So slash gives us home. Now let's create another path for anything else, basically, where we assign the value after that to a parameter called page. And we're just going to say, well, at the moment, just say that we're in some other page. So let's try that. Let's try like slash Bessie. Aha, there we go. Another page. Great. Okay, that's working. So the next thing we need to do is to create a component that's going to do the admin work for us. So let's go and create a page admin component, administrate the page. And the first thing it needs to do is figure out, well, what page am I looking at? So it's going to use this use params hook, and it's going to drop that value, that page value into the template. And now we can see, great. Okay, so we're getting Bessie out of the URL, and we're mapping it into page. Awesome. Okay, so now we know the page is Bessie, right? We need to go and get that from the server. So let's go and create our API helpers. And the first one's going to be this fetch page. It takes as the first value really a key. We're just going to ignore that. That's why the underscore. And then an object that has any parameters. So in this case, we're going to give it page. And then it's going to fire off a fetch built in right in the browser. And then the fetch is going to go and give us back a promise. We're going to then resolve the first level of that to turn it back into JSON. And then that returns it back still as a promise out of fetch page. And that's what React query is going to expect. So let's bring in fetch page first. Let's go back into console, add React query. Fire that back up again. Awesome. Not doing anything yet. It's not breaking. That's always good. So let's bring in use query from React query. So let's go back over into page admin, and then we're going to bring in that use query hook. The first parameter is the request. So in this case, get page is going to be the key that we're going to ignore on the other side. And the parameter is that page. And then fetch page is what we're telling use query to use to go and make that request. All right. And that's going to give us back data. It actually gives us back a bunch of things, but really we're just going to look at data at this point. So let's drop that in there. It's just JSON stringify it, see what it looks like. All right. So it's returning an empty object, as you'd expect from /API/Bessie. So let's just make sure that it's actually making the call. Let's go over to the inspector. Yep. Looks good. Making a call, getting back pretty much nothing. All right, next thing to do is create an editor. So let's go over and create a new file called editor. And we're going to bring in form and input from Semantic UI. And we'll just create an editor that takes a title, creates a form, and adds an input field with a placeholder as title, the value is title, and the style is width 100%, so it stretches all the way across the available space, and gives a little bit of margin at the bottom, because we're going to add more of these. Let's bring that in. And of course, export it. And now let's actually put it into the layout with the data. And we expect an empty input, and we get it. Great. Okay, and we no longer need that text. So the next thing to do is, well, we gotten some state back, the current state, and we need to track the new state. So we're going to create a new piece of state called fields. It's going to hold all of the fields, and then we're going to use an effect to basically set those when we get the data back. And that's why we have that array in there with data in it. That's basically saying whenever data changes, then we're going to set the fields to that data. Fire along now the fields instead of data. Looks good. And now we want to show this as well. So we're going to go create a page, and this is going to be the page layout. And that's just going to have an H1 in there for the title currently. So this page is going to be essentially the renderer for that content. You have the editor that edits the content and page that displays the content. So let's drop those. So let's drop that down there along with the fields. Cool. And it's there, but nothing's working. And the reason is that we're not actually changing fields. Right? Everything was empty to start with, and now it's just as empty. So what we need to do is we need to go and add an on change to editor. You basically say, okay, the contract is this. Whenever editor changes a field, it needs to tell us and give us the key, which would be the field name, and then the value, which would be the new value. And then we're going to set our version of the fields to be the original fields with that key and value overridden. And of course, we got to get editor to sing that song. So let's go back over there and add on change. In this case, we're going to be changing the title and giving it the new target value of the event. Hey, that's pretty sweet. Okay, it's looking good. But they're on top of each other. Let's make them side by side. So Semantic UI actually has this really nice thing. Just give it a number of columns, give it a row, and you can just kind of drop in some columns there, and it evenly spaces everything out. It's really nice, right? So create a grid, give it 2 columns, create a row within that, and then give it 2 grid columns, and it just gives them side by side. Very nice. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to save this thing. So we're going to add a button to editor. The save button. It's going to be a primary button. And it's going to call onSave, which we don't have yet. So let's go and make that. Now onSave needs to call something. So we're going to create a new function over in our API that is the post version of fetch page. So it's called post page. And all this one does is just take data. That's a contract. The React query contract is you just take data. And then you're going to call fetch again. Same exact endpoint, but in this case, we're going to get that page name from data. And it's going to be a post where the body is the whole piece of data. And then you're going to have to add on the headers just to make it work. And again, just like with fetch page, we're just going to go and get the JSON back. And otherwise, we're going to turn that promise. So let's bring in use mutation first. So that's when you have a post, anything is going to do a mutation, you use mutation. And then we're going to bring in post page from the API. Now let's actually call the use mutation hook. That's going to give us mutate back, and we'll drop that into onSave, and that we're going to give that the title, but we don't know what we're modifying at this point, right? We don't know what the page is, so we need to add page in here, and that's going to come in as a prop. Let's go back over to the main page, because the host, in this case app.jsx, knows the page. We just need to pass it on to the editor. So let's go do that. Let's fire this up. Oh, my layout's messed up. Okay, I know what this is. All right, I just need to go and drop that down a little bit. Use padding. Fine, okay. Now let's go and make a change. Hit save. And now if I refresh, it doesn't change. That's kind of subtle. So let's actually go over and look at the API. So let's go API Bessie. Yeah, there we go. Good. Good looking data. Excellent. Fantastic. So the next thing to do is go and add some more fields. We need a text field and a couple images. So we're going to bring in text area for the text field, which is actually like a description kind of thing. You can really come up with any fields you want here. These are just the ones that I decided to use. As I say, this is like the simplest CMS I've ever done. Okay, so I'm going to add a few more images in here. Image 1, image 2, image 3. And these are just going to set keys. All right, let's put in some pooch stuff. So I'm going to go over to placedog.net. And it's got a list of all of the different puppers I can put on the page. Oh, so cute. Okay, let's grab a couple. So we're just going to say 31, 32, 33, hit save. And now let's go over, well, we haven't updated page yet, so it's not going to show anything. So let's go and check out the API. Oh, it didn't change. What am I missing? Oh, yeah. Okay, I forgot to add those to mutate. Let's go and add those in there. Great. I got to retype all that stuff. Cool. Okay. And now the API looks good. Awesome. Okay. The next thing to do is update our page. So we're just going to go and update this a little bit and add in a paragraph tag for the text. Going to go and optionally add in an image. Let's take a look. Get set to 100%. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm not a big fan of the sepia, though. Let's fix that. Not in that case. Sepia is cool, but that was kind of weird. All right. So I want to bring in another grid because I want those, like a 3-column layout for those images. Just do it just like we did before. So just go and wrap that image in a grid column. All right, looks good. Now let's copy and paste for the other two. All right, that is looking great. And that's it for the CMS admin portion of this. And that's looking great. And I'll tell you what, that's actually it for the CMS admin portion of this. That app is pretty much feature complete, right? Until we get over to actually putting it in the homepage, there's nothing left to do. Okay, so I think that's really cool even on its own. That's a nice little like starter app for a CMS system. That's just really fun. But it's at this point, right? CMS is done, everything's going, it's great. They're going to go and say, we're great. And product management's going to go, okay, great. Now we got to go take this other team and go and build out the site, the customer facing site that's going to go and render all the data that we just put in there. And of course, these two teams, they're not going to talk and they're going to have different designs and it's going to look entirely different. So there's going to be that preview problem. Well, let's fix that. Let's go and build out the homepage application and use module federation to go and consume those rendering components from the admin app. Okay, so putting in the homepage starts with actually creating a homepage. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and basically just copy what we have right now because it's all pretty much set up. A directory called home. That's wrong. Let's go make that home. And I'm just going to go and chop the heck out of this. So let's just make that home. Let's go down. Let's remove all of the cool API stuff that we had before. We don't need that in the homepage, right? We're going to use the API over on the CMS admin side. You can change out the port number to 8081 or whatever you want. And we're going to change the module federation name to home. We're also going to say that we are going to use CMS. We haven't actually put anything out of CMS yet, but might as well. Saves us some reboots of the server. We're also going to bring in as a shared library the semantic UI components. And that has to be symmetric, right? It has to. Anybody that requires semantic UI, React needs to export it as a shared library. Now let's go delete a few things, including the API, the editor, the page. We're going to get all that from the other app. And let's pare down our app a little bit. Don't need use query. Don't need any of the page admin. And then on the app side, we're just going to go and say, here's a simple route. And let's go and make it dark green on the header, just so we know the difference between the two. All right, looking good. Now, before we fire that up, what I want to do is create a monorepo out of this. So I'm going to go back up to the root directory of the whole thing and do yarn init -y. It's going to create us a little package JSON. I'm going to say that that's private. And then set up some workspaces. In this case, just anything in package is a workspace. And then bring in these scripts, and these are basically just going to run the servers. So in order to do that, I need to add in concurrently in WS run. Concurrently is just an npm package that runs multiple jobs simultaneously. You just give it different args on the command line. So in this case, we're going to say to run anything in the workspaces in parallel with the start command. So let's add both of those. And now at the top, we can just say yarn start and both of the servers launch, which is really nice. Okay, we have a dark green home page. Looking good. It supports multiple routes. All right. So nice. You use one app as kind of the starting point for the other. It just meant we didn't have to go and do all the little Webpack upgrades and all that. So let's go back over to the CMS. And we're going to create a new file called embed page. And the reason is this, right? Page, just you give it some data and it renders it. But what we really need is we need it to go and actually make the request. We need this component to go make this request to the API, get the data back, and then give it to that renderer. We don't have that data yet. So that's what embed page is going to do. Page is going to make the request and then fire up page. So we're going to bring in fetch page and page, export that, and then we're going to use the same query as we had before. It's going to use fetch page. And then if we have data, we're going to use page to format it. Otherwise, we're just going to be blank. Okay, now let's go and add this to our exposes. Embed page. And then fire it back up again. Great. Everything still works. And we have a remote entry, which is great. So it looks like we are exporting that component. If you don't export anything, then you won't get a remote entry. So let's go back over to our home page. And we need to consume this now. So let's first go and create a new component called page display. That's going to go and use that params to get the page. And then we're going to call embed page with that page, right? That should be easy enough. Let's go and just import it using a React lazy component. And we use CMS embed page because CMS is the name that's listed in the module federation in the Webpack config. And let's fire that up. And it doesn't work, not surprisingly. But what this is telling us is we don't have a React suspense. So let's go wrap that in a suspense with a fallback. Say it's loading. Looks good. Nope. Still not good. CMS is not defined. Indeed true. And here's the reason why. We need to go and bring in the remote entry. Let's bring in remote entry. Now it works, right? No. Why is that? Well, okay. So it's going and grabbing /API/Bessie, but it's going and doing it in the wrong server. That's not right. It's trying to get it off 8081, and the data is on 8080. So there's a bunch of different ways to solve this. You could just hard code CMS admin so it always goes to 8080. Or in this case, I'm going to do what's called creating a functor. So I'm going to change fetch page and post page so that instead of just taking the arguments and returning a promise, it's going to take a host and then return a function that is usable by React Query. So I'll add the host to the fetch, and we'll just default that host to blank, and then add to fetch. And now we've got to go and find anywhere where we used fetch page. So let's see, in app.jsx, this is local, so I'm just going to call that with nothing. And then over in embed page, I'm going to call that with localhost. So if it was nothing, it would just say like /API, right? In this case, it's going to say HTTP localhost 8080 and then that. Okay. Same thing with post page. Let's try that out. So over in editor, we're just going to go and currently just going to use nothing. Hey, look at this. Wow, it works. That is amazing. We're grabbing the component, embed page, from CMS, and we're just firing it up, telling what page we want. And that component is then going back to the CMS app, getting the data, and formatting it just the way it would in the CMS admin app. That is really nice. Okay, and now since we're crazy like that, I want to do the same thing for the editor. So let's bring in a few things. Let's bring in, again, React and use query. Bring in the editor this time, as well as fetch page. We're going to use post page as well pretty soon here. So let's create our little component. And the first thing we need to do is get the data. So let's go grab that from embed page. We need to know what we're editing. So we go grab that first. And again, we're going to use localhost. We're going to override the host. And then let's go over to our page admin and grab out where we manage the data when we edit it. So we're going to set up our fields and use that use effect. Now, we'll make it easy on ourselves and basically say, well, if you haven't loaded, if there's no data, then don't worry about it. Just return null. Otherwise, let's return the editor. Right, but again, we're executing in a different context, right? We're embedded. So we need to let editor know that we're embedded. So we need to add an option for the host. And we pass that option to the post page functor that creates that post page function. And we're going to default that to empty. We're going to add that into here in the editor. Great. Okay. And we're also going to go over to the module federation plugin and expose the embedded editor. Again, you need to restart. Get rid of those. Great. Everything looks good so far. Nothing's broken. So let's go back over to home. And now we're going to go and add in the embed editor. How are we going to pull this off? Let's see. So I want to use tabs for this. So each one's going to have its own component. Okay, let's rename this to page. A little confusingly, but whatever. And let's create a new one called editor. It's basically the same thing, except that it runs editor. And now let's go over and create our tabs. So the semantic UI React version, you basically give it a list of panes where each one has a menu item. So I'm going to say this one's display. And you give it a render function. And then you give it a render function, which in this case returns a tab pane with the page in it. All right, let's see how that looks. All right, nice. A single tab. Not a lot of options. Let's go and add in a new menu item for our editor. Oh my God, that is amazing. Let's make some changes. Oh, that is beautiful. Wow. And it's symmetric. Look at that. It's actually changing over on the CMS side too. Oh my gosh. That is amazing. And let's spruce this up a little bit more by adding in a pointing option on the menu and giving it a blue background. Kind of make it pop a little bit. And I can just flip back and forth. Wow, that's nice. Okay, there you go. All right, well, thank you for sticking all the way through it. I really appreciate that. Of course, all the code is available to you on GitHub for free. And just try it out, see if it works for you. And you also should take a look at the community tab on this channel. We've got a lot of good stuff going on there, and there's a lot of good news coming out soon about a book on Module Federation and also the dashboard. So really cool stuff. In the meantime, if you like this video, hit that like button, let other people know. And if you really like the video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, click on that bell, and you'll be notified anytime a new video comes out. In the meantime, be happy, be healthy, and stay safe.